Hmm. I've heard of the bottomless popcorn bag, but I've yet to discover the bottomless cup of coffee. Can you imagine if that was around? On one hand, that would be so much tastiness in one, but on the other hand, we'd probably all be ODing on caffeine to no end. Probably a thought best left unsaid. Anyways, this is the next edition of Wandering Yuki Cheese Cafe, and I'm slowly realizing that I'm kind of liking that name too, because when I think of Wandering Yuki's Cheese Cafe, it almost makes me think of Monty Python's Flying Circus. How does it relate? Don't ask. But that is not the point of my story today. I feel like I'm going to be doing some cooking. I want to do a shrimp pad thai recipe. I'm sure that you've all had it before in some Asian restaurants. You probably enjoyed it, but it's supremely easy to do at home, and I'm going to be showing you the steps to do it today. So, first thing is first is you want to put together your sauce to spread all over the shrimp and on the noodles. That's going to be the most flavorful part of it. Take a small bowl, and in here you will put 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Then the next ingredients would be 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. If you are using this, make sure that you're using the low sodium one. 300 milligrams of sodium actually makes a big difference in this flavor. Not that I wonder that going from 1,000 to 700 is going to be a big deal, but probably best to avoid the sodium as much as possible. So then once you have that done, you would then go for 1 tablespoon and a half of lime juice. Oop. This one's kind of run out on me. Good thing I got some backup juice. Oop. Be right back, gotta cut this open. Whew. Now that that's out of the way, that was half a tablespoon before, and now we're gonna put the remaining tablespoon. There, that's set to go. Then after that, you would be taking 1 tablespoon and a half of what's called fish sauce. Sometimes I even say you could use oyster sauce over here. This one here actually tells me does not contain squid. Like, I don't know what people have against squid exactly, because calamari is really amazing. Unless, of course, this is a particular ingredient. Okay, 1, 2, 1 final half tablespoon, and then we are on and popping. Wait, what does that expression mean exactly? And now that that's done, you need to add one last ingredient to give it the kick. 1 tablespoon of sriracha sauce. But you could also use a little bit of chili sauce too to make this work. And you don't have to go for a full tablespoon. You just have to use a little bit less if you want less kick. So then once you have all that, just mix it up. And then you'll be keeping that aside for much later on when you're ready to cook this stuff. Not bad. I'll admit, fish sauce kind of smelled weird to me the first time I smelled it. But then when you mix it with everything else, you kind of get used to it. And then the next step is to get your noodles ready for this. Typically you would use vermicelli rice noodles, like very long ones. Then you would keep that aside for when you're ready to do the rest of the ingredients. Each type of pack is going to depend on what kind of noodles it is. Like, some will say that you have to do them for 2 minutes and then let it boil. Others will say boil, put it in for 6 minutes, like this one. But it's all very relative because it all gives you the same taste in the end. So start boiling your water, and then you can start preparing the rest of your ingredients. All right, and it looks like it's starting to boil pretty well, so it's time to add the noodles in. Holy. Now, I'm in a conundrum right now. Don't have a big enough pot. I'll figure it out, people. See you soon. Oof. Well, I didn't have that much of a bind as I thought. All I gotta do is use a fork to move it around and then play with it in the water. Eventually it softens up just enough to be able to fit in the pot. Funny, the more that you play with it, the softer it gets. So now we let this cook for about 6 minutes. Then when it rings, we rinse it out, drain it, and then keep it aside for when we do the rest of the stuff. It's time now. So now you just have to drain these into the sink and then keep them aside. Then that way, you'll be good to go to add them into the pot in the giant skewer. And maybe just for a little bit of extra precaution, rinse out the noodles. That'll rinse out a lot of the starches, which will make it stick together. And it'll be a lot easier for you to just stir around in the pan. All right. Let's make sure I don't spill any water over here. So we're good. Now I just need a little bit of chopping action. Don't ask me. How do I come up with these phrases? One chef's knife coming right up. Health for safety too. The next step is going to be the green onion. You want to have that all chopped up properly. Time for a little bit of chopping action on the onions. I feel like I need some background music for this. I know just the song. Yep, appropriate enough. This is called Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs. Classic track from the Stax record base in the 60s. Not sure if you're my age, you probably remember this song from The Sandlot. Man, has it really been that long? God, I'm getting old. Typically, they would call for about half a cup of green onions, which is around 2 stalks worth. Personally, I like to add an extra one just to keep it a bit more flavorful too. And is there really such a thing as too many green onions? Nah, I don't think so. Too bad you can't get any up-close action of this onion. Alright, onions are good to go. So then the next step is to add some garlic too. You need maybe about a good 3 cloves of it. And you want to mince up the garlic properly as well. Make sure it's nice and fine, and then when it blends in with the onion and your oil, c'est magnifique. Well, I got all of my garlic minced up over here, and turns out that when I was separating it, I got a bonus ration of it. So, extra garlic to go around. Not that I'm complaining, because remember, I'm Ukrainian, I can handle the garlic. And I'll look at it in 2 ways also. That, you know, this is good for me and it puts hair on my chest, or at least it'll scare away the vampires when it comes Halloween. Because you gotta protect yourself nowadays. Now, these are gonna be kept aside for a bit, and I've set my pan to medium heat to heat up about 3 tablespoons of canola oil. Canola oil really doesn't have a big heavy flavor like olive oil or other kinds. You really just need something to give it a light coating so things can not stick to each other. So let that heat up a little bit, and then once that's done, you add the onion and the garlic and then saute it for a little bit. And then while we're waiting for that, I have prepared 1 pound of shrimp, and it's been peeled and deveined. Now to make it easier, I buy this stuff at Costco for like 16 bucks. You get a full, like I want to say 1 kilogram or about 1 kilogram worth. And with that, they already have it with just the tail on. Most of it's been deveined, peeled off, and then you're good to go. You may need a bit of extra time so that if you're buying frozen, you thaw it out for a little bit, or just run it under water and then you're good to go. And then without further ado, now that it's starting to heat up well, you can add the onion and the garlic. Voila! There. Now it's starting to get a bit of a sizzle. Let me put up the heat just a little bit. Not quite to medium-high, just somewhere in between. You don't want to overcook this too much. The idea is that you'll know it's ready once the garlic becomes translucent, or it gets semi-see-through without being completely see-through. But most of the times what would happen is that this could brown, like it's really roasted up, and you'll know that you don't want it burnt. And then once this is just right, you can then add your shrimp. Can you see that and hear the sizzling? It's getting nice. I guess easiest thing you can do is keep the stuff towards the center of the pan. That's where most of the heat's going to be generated from. Ah, will you look at that? And at this step, you're ready to add the shrimp. Now this is really going to get it to sizzle too. Now, shrimp's kind of stuck together. Yeah, this will make good work of it. Now you probably already know the best way to cook shrimp. You just have to keep going at it until it all gets pink. Then you know you're safe to eat. Okay, I'll admit, I kind of like the smell of the sauteed garlic in here. Whenever I want to feel like I'm in a ghetto mood for supper, I'll just boil some pasta, saute it in oil with a bit of garlic, and then add a little bit of the shredded cheese on there. It's tasty, satisfying, and of course, kind of fits with my moniker being a cheese factory, as my buddies would say. I have to explain that one day. Yep, slow and steady will win the race. Yeah. And I felt like I had to continue the Stacks record marathon. Right. Sam and Dave, hold on, I'm coming. Gotta admit, I love the classics. That's some mighty fine shrimp over here, people. It's all set to go over here, all pink, stewing in its own juices. Or stewing in its own oils, I suppose. How does it work with crustaceans? Hang on, I'm going to stop before I get into a cheese moment there. So, now that you're good here, next step is to take all the vermicelli rice noodles that you cooked a while back, add it all in. Come on. Well, stubborn bastard, isn't it? Aha. Come on. Note to self, don't wait too long because then it sticks together and it starts giving you the middle finger. I don't want to let this overcook. The point of this is that you want to just mix it up with all the juices and the oils. That way it could kind of blend together with the shrimp. Go for maybe a good couple of minutes. Might need some work taking this apart. Okay, now that all the noodles are oiled up, the next step, your pad thai sauce that you made goes right in. And then you really start to mix it up. Everything that was oiled up in here is now going to bind pretty well with the sauce. So keep stirring until you got it all covered up in brown. And now it's been well mixed over here, as you can see. And then your final step to this is just going to be adding around half a pack of bean sprouts through it. Some will say that you just have to add it over it. Me personally, I like to add this in while I'm cooking it so it softens up just a little bit. We're almost on the home stretch. So then once this is softening up, we're ready to eat. And stay tuned for when I decide to give this a taste test. A job well done, I have to say. I already know how to make this stuff pretty well because I've done this countless times. But I always say that I never serve anything to people unless I try it myself because I have to always make sure it's edible. And again, worst case is if it's not edible, then the only one who has to suffer is me. So let's give this a try. Excellent. Ooh. Sriracha just hit my tongue, man. What can you do? And then for a final touch, what you could sometimes do is chop up a bit of basil or even add some kind of nuts to this too when you're serving it. Some people will use pine nuts, some people will use toasted almonds, or even sesame seed gets the job done. But overall, super satisfying. So this is Wandering Yuki Cheese Cafe signing off. Thanks for watching again, and once more, if you like what you see, Hit the subscribe button below, hit the like, leave a comment, and have a nice day.